Hey folks, welcome to Maverick Gun Works. Today we're going to do a little overview of the Colt Python 357 revolver. Alright, this jewel is made in Hartford, Connecticut, or was a few years ago. Started manufacturing in 1955 and ended production in 2005. So they haven't been made now in about 15 years, even for the very latest versions. And here we have a couple of those. We have both of these. Fortunately, we have two to take a look at today. Both are 2.5 inch barrel versions. The one we have here first is the polished stainless steel version with a bone grip. All right, and we have another satin stainless steel version with the wood grip. All right, this is made on the popular Colt I-frame, which is a very heavy frame, a large frame gun. It was originally designed as a premium target revolver. So all these guns have from the factory an adjustable rear sight. It's very micrometer, I guess you said, adjustable for windage and elevation. All right. Before we go much further, let's go ahead and do a open them up and show you that there's no ammunition in either one of these guns. All right. And this is kind of a neat little deal. Has the way Colt has designed their cylinder release. Actually, the large lug up here, if we pull that back to open the cylinder, whereas Smith & Wesson has typically a little tab that you push forward. All right, so now let's get into it a little bit deeper here. As I say, if you want to clean this gun, we'll go back over to our shiny one. We would simply, as with any revolver, we would use a mop of solvent patch, cloth patch through all of our cylinders, cylinder holes rather, chambers, and one through the barrel. And also I would probably wipe it on any of the framework that we saw where there was gunpowder residue. After it sits for 5 minutes or so, you can come back with a clean dry cloth, wipe it off, run the clean dry patch through your cylinder and through your barrel, and then finish it up with a lightly oiled patch to replace the oil where the solvent has washed away from it. And this being originally designed as a heavy frame target model gun, as a very smooth trigger operation right from the factory. And surprisingly, I've worked on and pulled triggers on a lot of different firearms, and to me this is by far the best pulling trigger, I think. It is not as heavy as you would think it is by pulling the trigger. It's such a smooth operation that it surprised me when I put the trigger pull gauge on it to see what the actual pull was. And I'm going to do that on the satin version here. First, before I do it, let's make sure let's go ahead and fill the cylinders here with some dummy rounds. All right, these are aluminum plastic cap, or actually aluminum with snap cap in the center of it, so we can use these to practice with and not damage the firearm at all. All right. And look how solidly this thing locks up, man. This is just amazing how tight tolerances are on this gun. No movement on the cylinder, forward or aft. Very close tolerance on the gap. Your gas gap right here between the cylinder and the barrel is exceptionally tight. Makes the gun very accurate, and at the same time it also makes it more susceptible probably to some dirt being an issue with if it gets extra dirty, it may cause an issue there. But anyway, it's part of the I'll say the performance package of it, and that it's developed to be a highly precise firearm. All right, now let's take a little tug on our trigger pull gauge here and see what we have in our double action function. 7, that's 8, 9. That's roughly about 9.5, 10 pounds, looks like. Actually surprising, because when I pull the trigger manually with my finger here, it's so smooth and so slick that it does not feel like it's a 10-pound trigger pull, honestly. It is so smooth. There's no stacking of the springs, anything like that, no rough edges. It's all just as slick as it can be. It just, I guess there's a heavy hammer spring on this particular gun. They've not been modified at all. These are just like they come from the factory, so we've not done anything to lighten them up at all. So that being said, we've shown the double action trigger pull. Let's see what it does with single action also. We'll reset our trigger pull gauge, hook it again, and see what we get on this. Whoa, you see right there, it's almost 3 pounds, about 2 3/4 pounds it looks like for single action. And again, that's not horrible. It's not the best in the world, but it is really good for a factory right out of box gun kind of thing. Alrighty. All of the Colt Python models have built with what is called a vent rib on top of the barrel, and these being a very short barrel, you only have one section. These guns were made in 2.5, 3, 4, 6, and 8-inch versions. So the longer barrel versions would have a much longer vent rib. The whole barrel is going to have a vent rib all the way down the top of it, and it will be a slot similar to this. It'll just be a lot more of them with a longer barrel. Also, we have a full underlug, is what's called. If you look under the barrel, we have a full framework under the barrel here, where your ejection rod is embedded in. And even if it was an 8-inch barrel, there will be a full underlug under the barrel also, the full length of the barrel. Gives it added strength. Makes the gun heavier also. And that being, it was intended to be a precision target gun, so it's I'll say overly built for the size of the frame of the gun it is, but man, they will last a lifetime. These are very popular with competition shooters and police officers. And there's a lot of these guns were built with the 6-inch and the 4-inch barrels. The 6-inch barrel was preferred by law enforcement, the typical the troopers, I guess, and the uniformed officers that wore the gun on the side. If you had the plainclothes officers that maybe were detectives or undercover kind of thing, they would prefer the 4-inch model. It's a little bit easier to conceal. This being a target model gun, in the 1970s, the Colt factory actually started using a laser bore sighter to sight these guns, to adjust the sights in from the factory with a laser bore sighter. First time that had ever been done. And once they stopped normal production in 2000, you could still get the guns made through their custom shop for another 5 years, but in 2005 they completely stopped production altogether. This is considered by many collector and gun writers to be the Rolls Royce, I guess you say, of the Colt lineup of firearms. And a lot of those same people consider this to be one of, if not the best revolver in the world. They've been collected by a lot of well-known folks, like Elvis Presley actually was a large proponent of collecting the Colt firearms, as well as some kings of overseas countries. So if you happen to run across one of these guns that is in good condition, and you can get it at a reasonable price, it will be definitely be a good investment for you. That pretty much concludes our look at the Colt Pythons in 357 Magnum. Hope that gives you a little bit of education about the background of these guns. And if you're in the northern part of North Carolina, come look us up at Maverick Gun Works.